Adam Gray had lived on the outskirts of Willow Ridge for nearly 12 years, but in truth, he existed more like a shadow than a man. His ranch stretched across acres of golden fields, fenced pastures, and a weathered barn whose doors creaked in the wind to anyone passing by. It was the picture of peace, but to Adam, it was a memory and echo of a life he once shared with his wife, Eliza, the woman who had filled the land with laughter, soft singing, and the smell of warm bread baking in the kitchen since her passing. The house held a stillness that seeped into Adam's bones. Dawn broke the same way every day, pale light spilling through curtains that had not been changed in years. He woke before the rooster crowed, as he always had, but now the other side of the bed remained cold. The morning coffee he brewed tasted the same. Yet sipping it alone made it bitter. His only company was the ticking clock on the wall and the occasional rustle of wind against the windows. He tried to keep himself busy, hoping work would drown out the ache in his chest. The ranch demanded attention. Fences needed mending, horses needed feeding, and land needed tending. Adam did it all without complaint, without pause, and without joy. He moved through each chore as if guided by muscle memory rather than desire. The animals knew him, trusted him, but even they sensed the sorrow lingering around him like a fog. The townspeople respected Adam. They admired his work ethic, his politeness, his steady presence, but they also felt a distance that none dared cross when he came into town for supplies. He spoke with a quiet kindness, but he never lingered. Conversations were short, smiles faint, and laughter non-existent. He declined invitations to gatherings, avoided crowded spaces, and slipped away before anyone could ask how he truly felt. Over time, people stopped trying inside the house. Framed photographs lined the hallway. Wedding pictures, Eliza's bright smile, moments captured during summer picnics or cold winter nights by the fire. Adam dusted them regularly, but he never stopped to look at them for long. Memories were comforting, but they were also sharp, like touching the edge of a blade. In the evenings, the silence pressed hardest against him. After finishing his work, Adam would sit on the porch with a cup of tea, staring at the horizon. As the sun dipped behind the hills, the sky would turn shades of orange and purple, breathtakingly beautiful, but he felt none of its magic. The loneliness settled over him like a heavy coat he could never take off. Sometimes he whispered to the wind as if Eliza were still listening. Other times, he said nothing at all. Still, something in his heart refused to completely die beneath the layers of grief, loneliness, and resignation. There was a small ember of hope, faint, quiet, almost forgotten, but alive. He didn't know it yet. But life was about to change in the most unexpected way. Fate was moving toward him from a distance, carried on the wings of an approaching storm. And on one ordinary morning, as Adam stepped outside to fix a loose fence post, he had no idea that the next 24 hours would shatter his routine, awaken the heart he thought had turned to stone, and bring a stranger into his life who would alter everything. The storm rolled into Willow Ridge with a force that felt almost unnatural. Clouds gathered like an army across the horizon, dark and heavy, swallowing the afternoon sun. The wind grew sharp, howling across the empty fields and rattling the loose boards on Adam's barn. By late afternoon, the sky had turned the color of bruised steel, and the first drops of rain hit the ground like cold needles. Adam was on his way back from town when he first saw her. The bus stop stood on a lonely stretch of road just before the turnoff to his ranch. Most days, it was empty, just a wooden bench and a faded roof that looked like it had been built decades ago. But today, as rain began to fall harder, a young woman stood there trembling. She hugged herself tightly, her dress soaked and clinging to her fragile frame. Her dark hair was plastered to her face, water dripping from the ends. She held a small, worn bag against her chest, as if it was all she had in the world. Even from a distance, Adam could sense fear rolling off her like a second storm. He slowed his truck and rolled down the window. "You all right, miss?" he called out, raising his voice over the rain. She flinched at the sound, startled, her wide eyes filled with something between fear and desperation. For a moment, Adam thought she might run, but instead, she took a shaky step forward, clutching her bag tighter. I think I missed the bus," she said softly, though her voice trembled so much he almost couldn't hear her. And it's the last one for today. Adam glanced around. The roads were empty, and the storm was worsening. Leaving her there wasn't an option, not for any decent man, and certainly not for someone like him. You'll catch your death standing out here, he said gently. My ranch is just down the road. I've got a warm fire. You can wait out the storm there. She hesitated. He could see the battle in her eyes, fear versus need, trust versus caution. Are you sure? She whispered. I don't want to trouble you. It's no trouble, Adam said, offering a small, sincere nod. No person should be out in weather like this. After a long moment, she opened the passenger door and climbed inside. She sat stiffly, as if her body had forgotten how to rest. Adam turned up the heater, and color slowly began returning to her cheeks. My name's Adam Gray, he said as he drove. And you are? Lena, she replied, eyes focused on the window. Just Lena. He waited for her to say more, but she didn't. Her silence wasn't cold, it was protective. Like she was holding her past tightly locked away. When the truck hit a bump, she jolted, gripping her bag so tightly her knuckles turned white. It didn't escape Adam's notice. When they reached the ranch, he led her inside, apologizing quietly for the scattered tools and unwashed dishes. She shook her head quickly. It's warm, she said, almost in awe. Thank you, as she dried her hair by the fireplace. Adam observed her quietly. She was undeniably beautiful, delicate features, soft eyes, a face shaped by hardship rather than vanity, but what struck him more was the sadness she carried. Like a shadow resting on her shoulders, they shared a simple dinner: bread, soup, and tea. Lena ate as though she hadn't had a real meal in days. Something in Adam's chest tightened when he gently asked where she had come from. She hesitated. Her eyes flickered briefly with something sharp, something painful. I left a place that wasn't safe, she finally whispered. I had to, and though it wasn't much. Adam understood enough that night as the storm hammered against the windows. Two lonely souls sat near the crackling fire, one seeking shelter, the other unknowingly preparing to have his life changed forever. The storm raged through the night, thunder rumbling like distant drums, but inside Adam's ranch house, a soft glow from the fireplace painted the room in warm shades of gold. Rain pounded against the roof, yet the space around the crackling flames felt almost like a world of its own. Quiet, safe, and unexpectedly intimate. Lena sat curled in Adam's old armchair, wrapped in a blanket he had found in the linen closet. Her clothes were drying near the fire, and her wet hair now fell around her shoulders in soft waves. Adam had given her a pair of Eliza's old flannel shirts, not knowing whether offering another woman his late wife's things was right or wrong, only knowing she needed something warm, and Lena, with a gentle murmur of thanks, accepted it without hesitation. For a long while, neither of them spoke. The fire cracked, the wind howled, and the rain drummed steadily. But it was a peaceful silence. Lena seemed to be battling exhaustion and fear, while Adam was quietly studying her from across the room, careful not to make her uncomfortable, yet unable to ignore the pull he felt toward her presence. Finally, Lena broke the silence. You live alone? She asked softly, her gaze lingering on the walls where old photographs hung. Adam nodded. For some years now. Lena hesitated. Then, your wife? He took a slow breath, a question that usually stabbed him like a blade, but somehow, coming from Lena, it felt gentler. He nodded again. She passed a long time ago. A shadow of sympathy flickered in her eyes. I'm sorry, Adam offered a faint smile. Life goes on whether we want it to or not. Lena looked down at her hands. Sometimes it pushes us places we never meant to go. There was weight behind her words, pain stories she wasn't ready to share. Adam sensed it, but didn't pry. Instead, he poured her a cup of tea, chamomile, the kind Eliza once loved, and placed it in her hands. Lena accepted it with a small, grateful sigh as they sat near the fire. The conversation slowly unfolded like layers being peeled back. Lena spoke about her childhood, her love of drawing, her dream of someday seeing places beyond the one she had run from. She didn't speak of the people chasing her, not yet, but Adam could feel the fear underneath every paused sentence. He shared pieces of his own life too, though carefully: his work on the ranch, the things he missed, the quiet routines that had shaped his days. He found himself laughing softly at one point, actually laughing when Lena joked about his stubborn old rooster that kept crowing at the back door. It was the first time he'd laughed like that in years. The sound surprised him. It surprised her, too. You should laugh more, she said gently, watching him with warm eyes that felt far too knowing. I haven't had much reason, he admitted. She looked at the fire. Maybe you will again. It was strange. They had known each other for only hours. Yet Adam felt as if he had known her longer. Lena had the ability to sit quietly without making the silence feel heavy. She listened, really listened. She spoke with sincerity, without trying to impress, and beneath her fear was a softness that pulled at something deep inside Adam's chest. Outside, lightning split the sky, but the storm inside the house had already begun to calm. Too tired, wounded souls sat close to the fire, sharing pieces of themselves they hadn't dared offer anyone in a long time. By the time midnight approached, Lena's eyelids began to droop. Adam brought a pillow and blanket and made a small sleeping space for her near the fireplace where it was warmest. I'll take the sofa, he said. Lena touched the blanket gently and whispered, "Thank you for everything." Adam gave a small nod, though his heart beat harder than he wanted to admit as she drifted into sleep. He watched her only for a moment, her face peaceful, her breathing soft, and felt something shift inside him, something warm, something alive. A connection had sparked that night, born in the middle of a storm, unexpected yet undeniable, and neither of them knew just how much it would change the course of their lives. Morning came slowly, with pale sunlight slipping through the curtains and settling softly across the wooden floorboards. The storm had passed, leaving behind the faint smell of wet earth and a crispness in the air. Adam rose early, as he always did, but something felt different for the first time in years. He wasn't waking the silence. He was waking knowing someone else was under his roof. Lena was still asleep by the fireplace, curled beneath the blanket he had given her. Her breathing was steady, peaceful in a way that made her look younger, almost fragile. Adam watched for a moment, struck by how natural it felt to have her there, a stranger. Yes, but one who had somehow filled the house with a warmth he hadn't felt since. He quietly made breakfast: fresh eggs, biscuits, and a pot of strong coffee. The aroma filled the kitchen, and soon Lena stirred awake, blinking sleepily as she sat up. You didn't have to, she began, embarrassed. Adam shook his head. Breakfast is always better with company. A shy smile touched her lips, but beneath it Adam sensed something else, a weariness, a fear she tried to hide. She looked around the home as if trying to memorize every corner, every detail, as though she didn't expect to stay long as they ate. Small pieces of conversation filled the table. Lena thanked him again for his kindness, insisting she would leave once the roads dried. Adam tried to reassure her that she could stay as long as she needed, just until she was safe. The word safe made her go. Still safe, she whispered. I don't know if I'll ever be that again. Before Adam could ask, a sharp sound cut through the quiet. A distant wagon, its wheels ground roughly against the muddy road, the creaking wooden frame echoing through the open land. It was heading toward the ranch. Adam paused mid-step, listening closely. Visitors were rare out here, especially this early. Lena's face went pale, her hands began to tremble. Her breakfast forgotten, her breathing quickened, shallow and frantic, as if each second stole more air from her lungs. Her eyes locked onto the window with a terror Adam had never seen in anyone. No, she whispered, her voice nearly soundless. They found me. Adam moved to the window and saw it, an old wagon pulled by two dark horses, inching slowly down the dirt path toward his land. Two men sat at the front, talking too quietly to hear, but their posture was rigid, purposeful, the kind of posture that didn't belong to ordinary travelers. Who are they? Adam asked softly. Lena's hands gripped the edge of the table hard enough to whiten her knuckles. Men from the place I ran from. They were sent to bring me back. They'll lie, threaten, do whatever it takes. Her eyes glistened with fear. Adam, if they see me, they won't. His voice was firm, steady in a way that surprised even him. You're safe here. No one's ever been able to protect me, she whispered. Then it's about time someone did. He placed a gentle but strong hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him, fear warring with a faint, trembling trust. The wagon came to a stop at the end of the driveway. The men scanned the house, The barns, the stretch of open land, one of them stepped down, adjusting his coat and moving with the confidence of someone who felt entitled to whatever he wanted. Adam's jaw tightened. This was his home, his land, and Lena was under his care. Now he stepped out onto the porch. Shoulders squared, voice calm, but carrying iron. Morning, state your business. One of the men tipped his hat, a sharp smile on his lips. We're looking for a young woman. She ran away from where she belonged, thought she might have passed through here. Adam didn't flinch. Not here, he replied, and you won't find anyone on my land unless I say so. Inside. Lena held her breath outside. The tension thickened. It was clear these men weren't giving up easily, but neither was Adam. He had seen fear in Lena's eyes, and something inside him, something old, protective, and long suppressed, had awakened. He wasn't about to let danger steal into his home or take her away. Not now, not over this moment. Tense and heavy would become the turning point that changed everything. The men eventually left, though, not because they believed Adam. They drove off slowly, their wagon wheels grinding through the mud, their eyes sweeping every inch of the ranch as if they could pull Lena from the shadows by sheer force of will. Their departure did nothing to comfort her, if anything. It made her more restless. She knew this kind of pursuit. Leaving didn't mean surrender, it meant strategy. It meant they'd return inside the house. Lena trembled as she watched the wagon disappear down the road. Her breath came shallow and uneven, as if the very act of breathing felt dangerous. Adam stayed near her but gave her space, waiting for her to speak when she was ready. They'll come back, she whispered finally. Men like them never stop until they get what they want. Adam's jaw tightened. Then they'll have to go through me. Lena shook her head desperately. Adam, you don't understand what they're capable of. They have power, influence, money. I'm nothing to them except property they lost. They don't care where I end up as long as they can claim ownership. The word property stabbed into Adam's chest. He'd seen cruelty in his life, greedy landowners, harsh ranch bosses, cold-hearted men, but the idea of anyone seeing Lena as something to own made his blood boil. You're not property, he said. Firmly, tears welled in her eyes. To them, I am. That's why I ran. I'd rather die than go back. Those words cut him deeply. He moved closer, not touching her yet, but standing close enough that she could feel his steady, grounding presence. You're safe with me, he said quietly. Lena shook her head again, her voice breaking. No place is safe. Not unless I belong somewhere they can't question. A woman alone, especially one like me, they can always claim I'm theirs. The law doesn't protect someone without a name, without a husband, without a family. She trailed off, swallowing back a sob. Adam stared at her, his heart pounding. Her fear was real. Her reasoning wasn't dramatic, it was practical, and the more she spoke, the clearer it became. She had no shield in this world, no security, no standing. Nothing to keep her from being taken except one thing. A thought rose in Adam's mind. Heavy and sudden, it was reckless, unbelievable, yet it felt right in a way he couldn't explain. Everything inside him, his instincts, his heart. The quiet voice he'd ignored for years urged him forward. He took a step closer. Lena, he said softly, there's a way to keep you safe, really safe. She looked up, confusion and fear mingling in her eyes. How? Adam's breath shook, not from uncertainty, but from the weight of what he was about to say. Marry me. Silence fell between them. Only the ticking of the clock and the distant drip of rain from the eaves filled the air. Lena looked stunned. Frozen in place, she blinked, as if waiting for him to laugh, to take the words back. But he didn't. Adam's expression was steady resolution in every line of his face. You don't know me, she whispered, voice trembling. I know enough. He replied, I know you're kind, I know you're scared, I know you deserve a home, and I know I won't let anyone hurt you. Her lips parted, breath catching. This isn't pity, Adam added, his voice low but strong. It's a choice, my choice, and if you want, it can be yours too. Lena's eyes glistened. She had spent her life surrounded by cruelty, betrayal, and control. Never had anyone asked her what she wanted. Never had someone offered safety without strings. Never had a man spoken to her with such gentleness. Her heart raced, her mind screamed for caution, but her soul, tired, wounded, longing, leaned toward him. You would marry me today? She whispered. Today, Adam said. Right now, if you say yes. A tear slid down her cheek. Why? Adam took her hands, warm and steady around her shaking ones. Because you deserve a life, he said softly. And I haven't felt alive in years, but with you here. Lena, something in me woke up again. Her breath hitched. No one had ever spoken to her like this slowly. Hesitantly, Lena nodded. Yes, she whispered. I'll marry you. Adam's chest loosened with something like relief. Something like hope, something like love he hadn't allowed himself to feel since the day he lost Eliza. There was no time to waste. The men could return at any moment. The town priest lived just 2 miles away within hours. They would stand together under the simple chapel roof, 2 hearts battered by life, choosing one another not out of convenience but out of trust, courage, and the desperate need to protect something fragile and new. Their lives, once separate and silent, had collided in a single day, and neither would ever be the same again. The chapel was humble white walls, worn pews, and sunlight streaming through a single stained-glass window. There were no guests except the old priest. No flowers, no music, no fancy clothes yet. As Adam and Lena stood side by side, hands clasped, something sacred filled the space around them. Lena's voice trembled as she repeated her vows, while Adam spoke with a steady softness that made her heart flutter. Their marriage was swift, unexpected, and born from danger, yet in that moment, it felt undeniably right. When they returned to the ranch, the world seemed strangely new. Lena entered the house for the first time as someone who belonged, not as a passing guest or frightened fugitive, but as Adam's wife. She paused in the doorway, absorbing the unfamiliar warmth that spread through her chest. Adam noticed her hesitation and offered a gentle smile, an unspoken promise that she didn't have to be afraid anymore. In the days that followed, their routine settled into something gentle and healing. Adam rose early as always, but now there were 2 mugs on the table. In the morning, Lena would join him with her sleepy smile, wrapped in one of his shirts. The quiet between them no longer heavy but comforting. She helped with the cooking, the cleaning, and sometimes joined him outside to feed the animals. Her presence transformed the ranch in small, beautiful ways. Curtains tied back to let in more light, fresh flowers on the kitchen table, the soft sound of her humming while she swept the porch. Adam found himself watching her often. How carefully she moved through the world, how easily she laughed when she felt safe, how her eyes softened when she looked at him. She had endured so much, yet still had the capacity for gentleness. It humbled him. For Lena, safety was an unfamiliar thing at first. She startled easily. A sudden knock at the door, a creaking floorboard, the distant sound of a wagon passing on the road. Adam never pushed her to talk. He simply stood beside her, his presence steady and anchoring. Until her breath eased over time, she began to relax, trusting that danger didn't lurk behind every shadow, trusting him most of all. Their conversations grew deeper. One evening by the fire, she told him about her past, about the household where she'd been treated like property, the man who believed owning her was his right, and the escape she made that nearly cost her everything. Adam listened silently, jaw clenched, heart aching with anger and protectiveness. When she finished, he didn't offer empty promises or dramatic declarations. He simply took her hand and said, "Those days are behind you now. As long as I breathe, no one will hurt you again." The sincerity in his voice broke something open in her that night. For the first time in years, Lena slept without fear. Their marriage, though rushed, began to grow roots deep, steady, unshakable. Little by little, affection blossomed into something more. Adam would find himself smiling when she teased him about his stubborn rooster, or when she clumsily tried her hand at baking. Lena, in return, found comfort in Adam's quiet humor, his unwavering loyalty, and the way he looked at her as if she mattered, as if she always had. Weeks passed, and the men who hunted her never returned. Word traveled that the man she'd escaped had grown tired of searching. Convinced she had vanished entirely for the first time since she fled, Lena could breathe deeply, without the weight of fear pressing on her chest. It was on a quiet evening, months after their wedding, as they stood together watching the sunset paint the sky in gold and lavender, that Lena finally whispered the words that had been growing inside her heart. "Adam, I'm not afraid anymore, not with you." He didn't reply with grand speeches. Instead, He wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close, and kissed the top of her head. In that simple gesture she felt everything: safety, hope. Belonging. Two souls, both wounded and lonely, had found each other in the most unexpected way. What began as a marriage of necessity had transformed into a bond built on trust, tenderness, and the kind of love that heals the deepest wounds. Their life was no longer defined by fear or loss. It was a beginning, a new home, a new love, and a future they would face together.